Welcome back to Strip to the Soul, where we talk about all things inner work, self-love, and everything it means to be a woman and a human in today's world. And also what we're going to talk about today, guys, is the fact that, first of all, I'm in England. And if you know me, you know I moved to Bali 6 years ago. And yeah, it's been a big transition for me. And I've had a lot of life changes, which can feel super scary, super uncomfortable. And I'm really just going to get into it in real talk with you guys. But I did want to talk about something that has been showing up for me, and that is the uncomfort with change and the fears that can come along with that. And it is something that feels part terrifying and also equally liberating in the same way. Change is scary at the end of the day. And the kind of change that shakes your routine and calls you to let go of what feels familiar, even though you know it's safe, it can feel scary. And that's what I've been experiencing. And it's the kind of change that you feel like really deep within. And it's hard because you can't explain it. And it's not like you're complaining necessarily about the change, but it feels super uncomfortable. And I feel like I've gone through so much change in the last couple of years of my life. You know, I spoke openly about how I kind of shifted and was working corporate, and then I got fired and I went through breakups, and it's just kind of on this catalyst, dark night of the soul / Saturn return, if you're familiar with it, where I felt like my life crumbled around me. And I tried to hold on to certain pieces of it, and then that crumbled as well. And I kind of was just left with myself, and it really gave me the space to, you know, create some beautiful things like write a book. And also it brought me to my knees. And I've now found myself in this place, you know, maybe like 6 months, almost a year later, and it feels scary. I have made the decision to leave Bali, and yeah, I had a beautiful holiday in the south of France, and then I've come back to England. And if you've navigated anything like this, or you're going through your own change, like whether it's moving cities or ending a relationship or quitting a job, or even just like choosing yourself, like big life changes, they don't come without fear. And I feel, you know, it's been showing up for me, like I said, because it feels uncomfortable. But with the fear and with the uncomfort comes growth. And I do know that. And so I did want to just talk about that today, and like what it actually takes for you to leave your comfort zone, because you might not even realize that you're holding yourself back in life and you're keeping yourself stuck out of fear. And this might actually be unconscious fear, or you might be afraid to quit your job and start that passion project, or you're actually unhappy in a relationship but you don't want to leave because it's familiar. And I want to chat to you about how to actually move through that fear that comes with change, and why sometimes it is actually the most spiritual thing to do is just basically to start over. And that's freaky in a way. And comfort zones can actually show up in your life sneakily. I find that you don't even realize sometimes that you're comfortable because they feel safe, or you're like, everything is good and like life is easy and it's very same. Like I found myself in this space and place where people were asking me what was going on in my life, and I was like, nothing much, same shit, different day. And I was like, that's kind of like a red flag, because as much as like that is good, and I do like love having a routine and all that, if it becomes a little bit repetitive, or you're not really pushing yourself to do things that feel scary or uncomfortable or inspire you, like if it's same shit different day, that's not really inspiring. And we don't even realize that we kind of put ourselves in a cage. And often we can stay in places we've outgrown, and we're almost too scared to leave because you almost don't know what to expect on the other side. And I kind of was in this weird, you know, limbo, that I was in this place that's so comfortable, so convenient. Paradoxically, at the same time, it's really annoying in many ways. And that was living in Bali. But it was comfortable in the sense that I had built my life there, and I had lots of friends, and I had a job, and like it's easy to get around, and you know, life is good and all that stuff, right? And it's funny because those are all the things that you very much aspire to have and do, but I did feel like a part of me had outgrown it. And that's when you have to check in with yourself and realize that, we do outgrow places and spaces and people, and it's not necessarily that they're bad, but they might not be helping us grow. I was in a relationship in my past and I just felt like we were growing in different directions, or we had kind of outgrown each other in a way. And it's not to say there was anything wrong with the relationship, but maybe it wasn't the right relationship for that next chapter. And that's what I was kind of feeling personally in my, Bali chapter. And it's definitely hard because you can have a life that looks good on paper, a relationship that looks good on paper, a job, whatever it is, but like inside you actually feel stuck and restless and a bit numb. I used that word in a relationship in the past, like I felt numb, or you just feel off. And I personally was getting really annoyed by things that didn't used to annoy me. And I had to check in with myself there. And you have to check in with yourself and realize that that's not failure. Like, that is truly your soul or your intuition nudging you towards something new when you're getting these feelings or you're not feeling quite right, like you're not in alignment. That's what it felt like for me, that I wasn't in alignment anymore. And I felt like my soul was like pushing me to, wake up a little bit and like zoom out. I think that's the best word, like zoom out and actually look at it, not from such a personal perspective, and kind of like overlook everything and really check in with like, where do I want to go? And is this the best place? Or like, what do I want for my life? And for me, a big theme of that was a relationship. And I really had to ask myself, was this the best place for me? And is this what I wanted my future to look like? And I realized that growth, never happens when it's easy. I was listening to a Godcast, like a podcast about God, and they were talking about how you're not refined like when it's comfortable and when your life is like amazing and money is flowing and it's abundant. Like, this isn't where you grow. You grow when it's uncomfortable or when times are hard, or you have to really persevere and push yourself to make something happen. And that is actually where you grow as a person. And the truth is, staying where you're not aligned anymore is slowly draining your spirit. And if you look at it like that, like you want your spirit full and happy and inspired and magnetic. And if you just feel flat and same shit, different day, it's not where you want to be. It's not who you are. And sometimes the most uncomfortable decision you actually make is in those realizations that you have with yourself. And that's when you're actually honest with yourself. So I want to get one thing straight. You can be terrified at like still make the change, right? Fear doesn't mean you stop. It means you pay attention to what's actually happening. And of course, it's scary to leave the unknown. And it's really, for me, it showed up in a lot of fear. But there's also this beauty in walking into something like when you're uncertain. And if you wait, like that's okay. But at the end of the day, time is still passing. And the longer you let it pass and the longer you ignore yourself, the kind of, you're not helping yourself at the end of the day. And of course, I don't think any time is perfect. And sometimes there is a lot of moving parts. Like for me in my life, like there was a lot I had to look at with like a job and, a house and all that. But sometimes you have to just pull the plug and make a decision and make that first step, because that first step is going to be the one that actually changes it. And if you just don't make that first step, you might actually just wait for forever. And then all of a sudden, you're 5 years down the line and that thing you wanted to do or that career you wanted to pursue, it's like it's gone and passed. And if you don't do it, someone else might. And that's the harsh truth. And I don't think it's like about being 100% fearless either. It's very cliche, but it's almost, feeling the fear and doing it anyway. And just moving that one step forward. It doesn't have to be like one giant leap. It doesn't have to be all at once, but like making the first step is important. Maybe you want to start that business and it's creating the Instagram handle and starting to play around on Canva, or sitting down and having an honest conversation with someone and, really zooming out and seeing what that would look like. Maybe that's your boss, maybe that, a relationship, whatever it is. You let the fear still be there, almost like as a passenger in the journey, but you let your intuition drive you. And you're allowed to be scared and brave at the same time. That's what I realized, because I did feel a lot of fears coming out, but also anytime I spoke about it with people, they were so inspired and so encouraging and supportive. And it's when you lean on people around you that you really can have that, maybe that push sometimes that you might be a little bit afraid to make. And maybe I am that push for you today, whatever resonates with you in your life. Or maybe you're just here to chat about what's going on in my life, because I swear to God, like, it just feels so different and strange and good and peaceful, and also, like I said, scary. And that scary is just the unknown and the unfamiliar, because you have to establish, you know, certain routines or certain, you know, practices, or even sometimes if you can't establish them, you have to be able to surrender them. That's also, you know, the flip side of that, you know, when you are navigating a lot of change, there is an element of surrender that has to go into it, that you have to be okay with things not being the way that you want them and letting that control go, but also having that self-discipline and doing what you can to keep in the things that your life that make you feel good when you are navigating, you know, change. I went through this with a breakup. You know, your whole life changes, everything is different, and there's certain, you know, things you have to do, going to the gym, eating well, like taking care of yourself. Same thing if you're moving country and everything is different. And for me, I was like so little, but I was like, I don't know where I get my coffee that I like, where do I get my lashes done? Like, this is all foreign to me and it feels uncomfortable. So yeah, it is hard, but anything is possible. I do believe that. And there is this beautiful knowing that there is spiritual growth and growth that comes with change. And every time you do choose growth over comfort, you are saying yes to yourself. And I waffle on about self-love. Like, if you know any of my courses or anything like that, like, self-love for me is like choosing yourself and putting yourself first and saying yes to your soul. And in those moments of, you know, taking that risk, you're the one saying to yourself, I'm ready to become more than I am right now. And when you realize that, like, I think everything changes in the best kind of way. Like, knowing I'm deserving of the relationship, I'm deserving of a new life, I want new experiences, new growth, I deserve a better job, whatever it is, when you make that change, you're saying to yourself, like, you're showing yourself that you are deserving of that, and you're giving yourself that, and you have to be the one to do that. Yes, I do believe that people can give you opportunities in life and things can happen for you in life, but ultimately you have to be the one that makes those big decisions and is, you know, the one going after your dreams and goals and, you know, vision for your life. And growth isn't always like being calm, and, you know, it doesn't always feel easy, like I said, because there is this involvement of you shedding a skin of an old version of you that no longer fits. And first you actually have to allow your ego to, you know, step to the side and realize that, you know, you've outgrown this comfort zone. And you also do have to grieve the things that you've outgrown, and also, you know, grieve that version of yourself. I found as I got a little bit older, I really was grieving that I wasn't, you know, the younger maiden version of myself anymore. And there was this grieving to, you know, my life as I knew it, because, you know, it's always funny when you're in the moment, you never really know until it's gone in that sense. And it's like, oh wow, like, there is a last for certain things, and it can be beautiful because it means there's a first for something new. But you have to face your shadows and your patterns and your doubts, and choose your truth, which is what your soul is telling you, or what you know to be true, or what you want for your life. And it's not about just like changing a job or cities or, you know, shaking up your routine. Like, in these choices that you make, you are energetically shifting. And with that, it brings new people, like I said, and new opportunities and new lessons that the old version of yourself couldn't hold, because it had all those things already. And big change, in a way, for me has felt like this spiritual initiation, I guess, into the next level version of myself. And even in the messy, it's still pretty sacred. Like, you'll look back in these moments in your life and see them as big chapters, or like a turning of a page, ending of a chapter. And that in itself is so beautiful when you recognize it like that. Like, wow, I'm closing that chapter, I'm closing that book, like what's next for me. And it's hard because, you know, the book might be great, but that's not to say that there isn't a new story waiting to be written. And you, in these moments, don't have to have it all figured out. Like, I don't have it all figured out. You know, there is this fear that I'm like, okay, like, what's going to happen? What's life going to look like? It feels so uncomfortable and scary. Like, I really am in the space and place where, like, I'm living out of a suitcase and I'm not in my house and it's not mine. And it's jarring. Like, it feels jarring. But I just knew that if I didn't take that step and then another and then another, I wouldn't, you know, make the move ultimately. And, you know, life isn't built in a single moment. What I'm realizing is like, okay, this is one step, leaving. Okay, it's living in hotels, you know, people's houses, all of this. It's like not quite my place yet, but it's a step, right? And these steps, you know, they're built in the courage to just keep showing up, even when you feel maybe unsure or unsettled in my you know, reality right now. And in, you know, your reality, you do have to just start to look around you and celebrate the small things, like, you know, showing up for yourself, or, you know, the email you finally sent to your boss, or the apartment that you viewed. Like, whatever it is, the goodbyes, saying goodbye to my friends was really hard, but I was also saying hello to what was to come. And, you know, in all these small acts, you know, you're showing yourself that you trust yourself more. And also, you're not letting fear win or fear take over. And when you actually can, like, look at that and realize, wow, like, I trusted myself, I trusted my intuition, I took that step. Like, this is how you grow as a person, like, spiritually, and then in your life it grows physically. And if you look at your life, it's funny, I actually saw an influencer, right? Like, someone had like left a comment saying, oh, you've changed, like in a kind of negative way. And she was like, yeah, I've changed. Like, we're supposed to change. Like, you weren't born to stay the same, and you're not born to shrink or settle or, you know, repeat the same patterns on loop. You actually came here as a human to evolve. And if you're choosing to stay in patterns on loop, like, that's on you. And that's the reason you're not growing and achieving the things that you want to in life, or, you know, you're stuck in the toxic relationships, or, you know, you're not moving forward in your career. And that's when you have to actually have a look at yourself and allow your ego to be put aside and look at your patterns and shadows and say, okay, I want to make a change. And so if you're feeling that pull to change, you have to listen, even if it actually makes no sense, especially if no one else understands, because, you know, not everyone's going to understand, and not everyone is you, and on your journey, no one else is. So, you know, it has to be you who's listening. And, you know, it was hard for me because it was like I had to listen, even if it meant, you know, leaving the things that once felt like home, because if not, I'd be ignoring what was like really true for me inside. And I always feel like our comfort zones, like, they served a version of us, or, you know, they might not have been comfortable at the beginning. Like, for me, moving to Bali at the beginning wasn't comfortable, but then I grew and I evolved, and then it became my comfort zone, and it did serve a version of me. But now there's a new version of me waiting on the other side, just like there's a new version of you potentially. And, you know, this version of you is going to be different, and that's amazing. And it's not trying to hold on to an old version of you. It's really like trusting, you know, your life path and what's predestined for you or meant for you, or those like dreams in your heart, whatever it is that like you resonate with. It's like trusting that it can happen for you, and trusting yourself that you have the ability to actually make that happen, and not letting that fear or doubt creep in, and believing, you know, if it's the universe or it's God, whatever, that they are with you, and, you know, you've got it, and you've attracted the right people in your life, and you can make it happen. And that even if, you make a choice and it doesn't necessarily work out potentially, that actually it's okay, that actually this is just one step on your path. It's not your final destination. Knowing that it's not your final destination is a beautiful way to look at life, because even if you make a choice and it feels scary, like you move country, maybe it doesn't work out. Okay, that was a cool chapter, that was an experience, maybe it was awful, whatever it is, you're going to grow. And how amazing that there is a benefit and a positive that comes from something no matter what, right? And I think, you don't have to know what's ahead of you. You just have to trust yourself that you're moving in the right direction, and trust that things are working out for you. I always say, like, show me how good it gets. So I'm believing that there is better for you than what you can even imagine, that your mind is so limited compared to what's actually possible for you, the relationship, the job, whatever it is. But if you limit yourself and allow your mind to make those decisions for you, you're never going to let yourself receive what's actually available to you. So yes, I went off on a tangent, but anyways, thank you for being here. Here's to the next chapter, and here's to growth, and for letting me share my path with you and journey, and allowing me to walk with you on yours. I hope if this episode stirred something in you, please give it a rating on the podcast store, Apple Store, or share it with a girlfriend. Just, remember that change is scary, but it's also a blessing. And how amazing that, we have this opportunity to potentially shift our life. And I'm excited for this. Like I said, it's going to be a journey, and I'm just going to keep on sharing whatever's showing up for me, and hopefully resonating with you in one way or the other. And just remember, like, you just have to keep on choosing yourself. And, I like to think of life as a game. Like, this is kind of fun. Like, let's roll with this. And of course it's hard. Like, there's so many logistical adult things, like the adulting things are the worst part, but everything is figure outable at the end of the day. And I think things are just things, and you can just let life unfold and realize it's not too deep, and you just have to keep on showing up with a smile on your face, and let go of what isn't serving you anymore. So yes, I will see you guys next time on Stripped to the Soul, and have an amazing day. Mwah!